So welcome. I am so excited to introduce my wonderful speaker. Her name is Barbara Dossey, and Barbara is a PhD in nursing, and she is a fellow in the American Academy of Nursing, and she is an internationally recognized nurse. She is a nurse pioneer in holistic nursing, and she also is a pioneer in nurse coaching. So she has a tremendous amount to offer us. Her expertise is in Florence Nightingale. And this is a very exciting time with the 2020 decade of the nurse, midwife, and nurse. And also it's Nightingale's 200th birthday. So I'm very excited because Barbara is a contemporary visionary. We have had Florence Nightingale, who has really led us into these 200 years. And this telesummit is how do we create a collective voice so we can come together and lead us, the next generation, into the next 200 years. So welcome, Barbara. I am so excited that you're here. And I'm here and I'm really excited because I've been very excited waiting for the interview with you. You have inspired me for many years. I've known you about you and your work and your husband's work. So I'm so excited. And you also inspired me to do the telesummit. So I want to thank you for that. So, we have a lot coming up this year, and I want you to talk about the event that you're hosting because I want people to know about that. But I want to ask you now, as the visionary nurse that you are, how do you see the future, and what do you think are the most important things we have to think about as nurses as we go into the future?
That is a big question, and it is on point. I do believe that we're at a moment in time where nurses are really beginning to expand their consciousness, to look at everything that we do, local to global. We must have that planetary capacity in order to truly look at sustainability. And everything we do in nursing, and it is our lens. And this is the beauty of who we are at this moment in time. And you then starting out with looking at our year being the 200th birthday of Florence Nightingale, and then the WHO declaring that this is the year of the International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife. So I am very hopeful about the new partnerships that are coming on board. I'm very hopeful about nurses finding their voice. We've always had our voice, but it is a different level right now. And we are right here in the midst of COVID-19, and it is putting nurses truly at the forefront of what's going on.
And what do you think, what are we learning at this time about who we are and how important we need to be in standing up and giving voice to what's necessary now?
Well, to me, the most important thing right now, if we're going to go forward to really make a difference, is we cannot do this alone. And so you and I look at our history together, and we've probably known each other. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 25 or 30 years now.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the core pieces that has been there with us all along is taking a deep dive into who we are. Our lives, and of course, yes, life gets very chaotic and it gets thrown way out of balance, but we have learned the importance of coming back to our own interiority. And as we focus on that capacity to then get still within, to look at the engagement and where we want to be, we breathe a philosophy into our work. And we're not just, putting a few little things together, but we have a deep philosophy of caring and healing. And this is where Florence Nightingale comes in, is when we are guided by our philosophical founders, Florence Nightingale being that for contemporary nursing. Many other people can weave into this. What it does is when we come from a philosophy, when we come from a depth, it literally breathes life into what it is that we're doing.
Yes.
And so this is our journey. and it can be very chaotic. We can get thrown off balance, but then we must go back in. Now, I look at Florence Nightingale's life, which I think is extremely important. She left 14,000 letters in the archives.
Wow.
It's the second largest collection, Victorian letter collection in the British archives. Only Prime Minister Gladstone's collection was a little bit bigger. She had also over 200 authored manuscripts. And the other thing that's there is when I look at what's going on right now with COVID-19, and I will say that Nightingale began to write in the 1870s, it will take 100 to 150 years to have the kinds of nurses that I envision that can change the health of humanity. So you add the 1870s, 150, that puts us here at 2020. I think she would be absolutely thrilled where nurses are right now. And she would be behind us to say, find your voice, get on any kind of social media you can, get your voice and be articulate about what is driving whatever it is that you're concerned with. So this is what to me is very important, is to look at from an integral perspective. But before I go forward, do you want to say anything before I get excited?
I want you to tell us. I want you to tell us, because I think that we are on the threshold, and you're like one of the guiding, have visionaries of today. And I think Florence Nightingale speaks not only, I know she speaks through you, but you also are speaking from your own wisdom and your own brilliance and light. So tell me more.
Well, I think it's this collective energy. And like you, early on, we were invited to join groups to truly begin to look at what is caring, healing, and compassion. Right. And I was privileged to be a founding member of the American Holistic Nurses Association that started in 1981, and then to find like-minded brothers and sisters that we could weave together. And those of us that have been in this long enough, when we started doing things like complementary and alternative therapies back in the 60s and 70s, we were just, people looked at us like we're crazy. And one of the things that I learned back in critical care, because that was my concentration the first 10 years, clinical, and then the concentration of clinical and teaching, and first 25 years, I was just thrilled, and I still am. That is my lens for nursing right now, is my critical care lens. But along the way, I began to see that there's more to it than technology, and I have always treasured listening to people's stories. And I have learned that if you just ask a couple of curious questions, that person will tell you exactly what they want, what they're most afraid of, and what they think will help them in their healing. And so that became something I did early in critical care back in the 70s, when people really thought you were crazy to do this. And I mean, it was like, you hide behind the curtains and you just say a prayer, I'm doing this with my highest intention. But to take a story of a person, let's say someone who's getting ready to go for a cardiac cath and they are scared to death, but then to do something that we know that is extremely basic and we do not have to have permission to do it. It is, how do we take a person's story, the threads of their story, and help them add to it to stay in a place of calmness and quiet with intention for what they want to see happen. So for example, a person getting ready to go for a cardiac cath, to be able to say, tell me what's going on with you right now. You're getting ready to go down for that cardiac cath, and they'll just go, I'm terrified. And I just go, oh, thank you for saying that. Can I share with you a couple of little things that are going to help you for the next hour when you're down in that procedure? And the patient's always going to say, yes. I've never had anyone turn this down. They'll go, well, go ahead. What do you want to happen? What do you want to see happen? It's not what I want to see happen. May I share with you just a few little things? And this is what we have learned in our work, the power of the breath in and out. and just teaching a person how to do that, because we know when people are tense and tight, we know from our own experience what happens. Our breathing is somewhere up here in our throat.
Yeah.
And if we can relax the diaphragm and let the belly just take that full breath in and out, then it really calms us. And then to even take it one step further. So to feel very as calm as you can, getting ready to go down for that cardiac cath, let that gurney, that mattress and that gurney support you as you're going down to the cath lab. Yeah. And then all of a sudden to take them through that, to do some autogenic suggestions about my right arm is warm and heavy, my left arm, my right leg, my left leg, and then to take them through what will happen down there in the cath lab, get their imagination working. Beautiful. And one of the things that I've always found very, very helpful is to ask a person, if you could be somewhere right now, what would you be doing? And frequently people, it is about women. I would be holding my grandchild. I would be needle pointing. I would be cooking a meal. A sportsman, I would be out there. I would be fly fishing. I would be tying flies, you know, just these little things. Then you could weave it in. And so then let's go back to the cardiac cath. So now here you are, you're getting ready for the cardiac cath. The doctors and the nurses, they are ready for you to participate with them. And all you have to do is in your imagination, imagine, let's say, you're going fly fishing. So I invite you right now for the next 20 minutes in this procedure. If they need you, they will have you like bear down like you're having a bowel movement, or they will have you take a deep breath and cough. Right. And you can do that, but then you can go back and fly fishing. And it is fascinating when you give people that kind of suggestion, what they will weave into it. And all of their senses, the hear, see, feel, touch, taste, and then the kinesthetic. For example, fly fishermen, they will, this has happened to me many times. Right. They will put on all of their gear. They will see themselves walking down a path to get down, you know, to the river. They see where they want to do it. They just kind of study it. They put the fly on their line, and then they, you know, sometimes catch the biggest fish they've ever caught in their life.
That's the power of imagination and how it can transport us and be such a great experience. So as they are going and dealing with the stress of their calf.
Right, right. One of the questions you asked me earlier, we had a lot as we got started. I think one of the things when we look at our philosophical foundation is how do we tap into that as the thread? So when we are tapping into that philosophy that drives us, we've all got a philosophy. Yes. And what we can do to go to our own interiority, that philosophy, what we choose to do, what we want to say, coming from that interiority, it just, it breathes life into what we want to do.
Exactly.
And the joy of nursing, and I can't believe it, I'm now 55 years in nursing. I am so excited to see where we came from in the early 60s to now where we are right now. Pardon me. And to develop these partnerships. And I will say one of the great joys of my life is that I get big ideas, but guess what? All of my nurse colleagues do, just like you. I mean, why do we connect? It's like, you know, it's like we can see, and if I do this, connect these dots, and then we take this quantum leap, and then you go, oh my gosh, I'm going to share this with Mary. I'm going to share it with Jean, or, you know, Susan or Diva or whoever. And to have soulmates that literally will listen to our story, who will not judge us when we, in a way, think we're going crazy. And can you imagine, we even had this thought pop in. So let me just give an example about what I am speaking about. Just, you know, very, I will go back. You know, I've always loved theory. And I will have to say the reason I love theory so much is I was sitting on a low B in my leadership course in my senior year in a baccalaureate program. Well, that is not good. And we could get, in our program then, we were being interviewed by all the people, well, 5 people coming from the National League for Nursing to accredit my baccalaureate program. And, you know, little did I know in 1965 the importance that it would be to be graduating from baccalaureate program, but then to be graduating from an accredited baccalaureate program. And so we had these people coming in from NLN, and as students, we all got interviewed, but it made me really begin to look at, oh gosh, we have entered a profession, the difference in an occupation and a profession, and that profession has that philosophy. It has a scope and standards of practice. And in 1965, in order to get 5 extra points, if I went to a theory course, a theory conference in Dallas, Texas, I could get 5 extra points. I could also get 5 extra points if I joined the American Nurses Association as a student nurse. Well, that's a no-brainer. That's 10 points.
That's great.
Let me quickly, the sun is coming in. Let me change this. Wait, hang on. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's called The Joy of Home Office.
I know it.
And here we are with daylight savings time. And the sun is now beginning to shift over my hill. I'm looking out. Can you see me okay?
I see you. Beautiful.
Okay, great. All right. So that was my excitement in 1965. Then we flip into critical care. And this was at a time where whoever learned first got to teach. It was before we had departments of education. Right. And I am a right brain learner.
Right.
And man, oh, could I hear heart sounds? Could I hear breath sounds? Ooh, blood gases. Ooh, I just love to get the data and then begin to put the physiology and the pathophys and the drugs that were going on with all this stuff. Yeah, it was so exciting. But then the thing that I want to say is we were concentrating so much in the 70s and the 80s on the procedures, the technology, and then this is what then began to throw me into another level of philosophy. Mm-hmm. And I would just go, is this all there is to nursing, the technology? And then the great gift of working with like-minded colleagues. How are you doing? I'm bored. I'm frustrated. I'm burning out. I mean, we were using that term back in the 70s already. And then to be with like-minded colleagues to really begin to look at, and I will say, you know, my theory of integral nursing is to look at this integral perspective. Mm-hmm. And so this has been one of my just guiding lights, is to look at and explore what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Why am I doing it? Why do I want to give this voice? But it's not about me. Mm-hmm. But one thing that's important, if we look at an integral perspective, this means that and you can just imagine you've got 4 quadrants. So the upper left then is my own interiority. I have to explore who I am, my own philosophy. Mm-hmm. Then why you and I have connected over all of this time we've known each other. It's because together we have gone to this we space. Mm-hmm. This we space is I listen to you, what you're excited about. You listen to me, what I'm excited about. And then we've had opportunities on many occasions to weave our stories together, which then they're bigger than we can imagine, and we plant seeds with each other. So that's one thing about this integral, the I and the we, but this is that, and then you look from a research perspective, this is that qualitative, interpretive aspect of who we are. I spoke about critical care. We can look then on, if you have 4 quadrants, on the right-hand quadrants, that these are the external. So it is, my I is that my interiority, but then how am I going to walk in the world? And this is where we are right now. How do I live, walk my talk? Right. And so when I go to critical care, or when I go to meetings, or it's even though I'm in my home office right now, and oh my gosh, it's so easy to stay at this desk, you know, without taking a break. But this is part of how do I implement this, and how do I take time to go do a sitting practice for 20 minutes? Or after we finish this, I'm going to go out and take a walk for 45 minutes and then come back and do. So what are my actions in the world to do all my physiology, pathophys, scope and practice, whatever I'm writing or articles. And then what is exciting to me right now is the partnerships. So how do we take our we space, our collective intelligences out into the world where we align with systems and structures and hospitals?
Exactly.
And it is that collective intelligence. So we can look very specifically right now about what's going on with COVID-19. Here are our brothers and sisters. They are operating in that upper right quadrant, which is the physiology, pathophysiology, the treatments, the protocols. And then you can look at the lower right. This is that alignment with the system. And we right now can have a visual picture of ourselves where the critical care units, everyone in there is on a ventilator. There are even people out in the hallways on ventilators. You know, we've had that crisis, and this is beginning to shift a bit, but it's beyond anything I can imagine. Right. So then what happens is all the focus is out there, and the one thing that we know right now is our nurse colleagues are not having enough time to rest, to get to that place of just calmness and quietness. Right. And so many nurses also have small children at home. They go from work to then having to homeschool now with COVID. We can go into all of the challenges that are going on right now. But I think the one thing in bringing this piece to a close that are very important is if each of us can remember just taking a few moments to quiet our mind, just turn off that ramping up, to take a breath in and see if we can sink down a little bit deeper to get calm and quiet, will help us in that space.
That is so powerful. I agree with you at this point in time. So what I hear you saying is, I love this idea that you said of the quadrants, and how we can move into a deeper space inside of ourselves as we're moving through the times that we're living in, you know, going deep inside of ourselves and finding that calm. And that's what we're going to need as we go through this experience and into the time of our future. Is how do we do that with the strength?
Right. So one of the things that I see at this momentous time right now in 2020 International Year of the Nurse and Midwife, and our collective coming together, we will have a reshaping of how we want things to be. Mm-hmm. And when we tie all of the philosophical foundation of Florence Nightingale, bringing us here to this time of caring, healing, and compassion, I think we need to move forward. And in doing that, how do we create this planetary sustainability? If we are not shifting our consciousness, expanding our consciousness to look at how we are connected with planet Earth. Right. And how do we have healthy people living on a healthy planet? Right. We're going to have continued chaos. We have a grand time right now in this moment to explore what Nightingale wrote about. She was speaking about clean air, clean water, clean food, clean housing, clean clothes, and working together, and that nursing was distinct and a parallel with medicine. And this is what we're seeing right now, is how are we going to reshape healthcare coming out of this? Exactly. And yes, we've got technology there, but we know that we've got potentially a new wave of COVID-19 that will come in the fall. We all, as nurses, wherever you work, we are all public health nurses. Mm-hmm. And so looking at the legacy that Nightingale left us, we can look now at what is called the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And what I did for our listeners and colleagues that will be joining us, I pulled this piece, and you can you read that?
Yeah, I can. Can you read them out loud to us?
These are the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And you can just do on the web 17 UN SDGs. So when we look at the social determinants of health, the environmental determinants of health, advocacy and safety.
Right.
And then look at planetary sustainability. Guess what? We as nurses, every time we are doing anything, we're not just doing one of these. First of all, I've put a circle around number 3.
Right.
It is good health and well-being. So just listen to these. Okay, let's look at a patient that has been discharged from an ICU unit
Right.
after COVID-19, and they are back out in the community.
Okay.
Let's say they are middle, low income. It doesn't matter. They are faced with looking at where are they going to, okay, let me do the first one. No poverty. 2, 0 hunger. 3, good health and well-being. 4, quality education. 5, gender equality. 6, clean water and sanitation. 7, looking at affordable energy. 8, decent work and economic growth. 9, looking at infrastructure. 10, looking at reduced inequalities. 11, looking at healthy communities. 12, looking at consumption and production. And then 13, 14, and 15, they're just amazing. 13 is climate action. And if we don't, with, looking at planetary sustainability, we have got to address that in our lives. 14, life underwater. 15, life on land. 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And 17, partnerships. So I invite everybody to just go UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So at any given time, so let's go back to, let's say, a patient's being discharged from the hospital.
Right.
Not only in the hospital have they been in there, they've been on a ventilator. We know that if they have the diagnosis of COVID-19, they have weaker lung capacity. So they're learning how to strengthen that. Then we have to look at, they now go back, and many people they do not know where they're going to pay bills. So many people are only $400 or $600 ahead. How are they going, they're unable to work. Where are they going to get food? What is the water like? What kind of equality do they have? What kind of education? And so what do we do as nurses with good health and sustainability? And we can look at what's happening, and it was like, probably 8 or 10 years ago now with Detroit and the bad water from lead in the pipes. This is going to happen throughout our United States because we have a crumbling infrastructure. And so it is our responsibility as nurses to look at, we can start by being environmental detectives in our own home. And so if we can start by looking at what's going on in our own home, are we using green products? How are we reducing plastics and different things such as that? And then when we raise our consciousness about being environmental detectives, then we're able to put all of these pieces together. So after COVID-19 and we began to restructure, we as nurses are going to be called to be environmental detectives because there is so much that has shifted, and it's not just the external environment where a person lives, but also we can look at the interior environment in a person. And this is where it comes in, the overwhelm of mental, emotional, social, relationships, and we can't separate any of this. So this is where we as nurses must listen to patient stories. We must come together at a moment in time. It's not our agenda. How do we ask them, tell me most what you need right this minute?
That's
and
beautiful.
If they say, I don't know where my next meal is coming from, then that is our responsibility in our community to look at where our soup kitchens are, where our different relief groups are. And, for example, right now, one of the things I love to do is I'm in a needlepoint guild. And one of the people in our group had contracted with our hospital to make 1,000 PPE gowns. And so it's just absolutely thrilling to have received, from my colleague with a mask on, with gloves, to get my patterns and my material to cut. and now then organizing. And it's just absolutely thrilling about and this is about SDG 17. This is about partnerships, and then we're looking at the infrastructure, and we're looking at healthy communities. So you can see at any given time, we are engaged with 4 to 6 to 7 of these at any kind. So it's not like this is overwhelming. I also want to say, when we look at this as the UN Sustainable Development Goals, this is 195 member states of the United Nations are all focused on the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Wow.
So when I get overwhelmed and I think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen now? I think about all of my brothers and sisters around the world, and we just can look at nurses and midwives right now. We've got 24 million nurses and midwives. So we know that nurses have this consciousness of, how do I assist you as my privilege of working with this client or patient or this family or this community project right now? How do I just put these little threads together, knowing that our little threads are then connected with the bigger threads with all of this? And this is one of the reasons that the World Health Organization declared in January of 2019, so we've had 1 year to bring this awareness, that in January 2020 would be the entire year is the year of the nurse and the midwife. Because what they were already seeing is that universal healthcare is needed for all. Mm-hmm. Healthcare is not the privilege of the people that have money or insurance. Every nation is responsible for its people to provide healthcare for all. Right. And this is one of the reasons also for the WHO declaring that, is for nurses to, again, find their voice, get it out there in Facebook and articles and the many ways that they have the conversations, and connect the partnerships so that we look at universal healthcare for all throughout the world. And COVID-19 has made it so clear. We intellectually knew it. Of course, nurses always have known this. Intellectually knew the difference between the middle and lower and higher income brackets. But now this has made it so clear about what's going on. We can never go back to the way it was. We will have to restructure. We will restructure healthcare. It's not we have to, we will. That's the only way that we're going to survive as a country and also as a planet. So that's what gives me a great deal of hope.
That's fantastic. And I also wanted to ask you at this point, is you have created a wonderful event that is a gift that I wanted to tell everybody about, because I want everyone on the Telesummit to hear about what you're planning with the Nightingale initiative and the integration you're doing with HeartMath. So I wanted to make sure that I put, that your Telesummit comes out as one of the first ones, so people will know about it and they'll be part of it.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Well, again, this is back to the UN SDGs. Right. Number 17 is partnerships.
Right.
And this is what we do as nurses. We have a gigantic network. We've got great ideas, but then how do you translate ideas into action? And so you connect with like-minded people. So my dear colleague, Diva Marie Beck in the Nightingale Initiative for Global Health, and I, and then a few other members on our team, began to look at, if May 12th is the year of the nurse and the midwife, nurses around the world will be celebrating Nightingale's 200th birthday, as well as it is the International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, May 6th through the 12th. And if we look at the 12th, is there any way to begin to measure, to begin to look at this kind of energy that is out there in the universe?
Yes.
And yes, there is. And so we drafted a proposal. Then we went to our dear sister, Dr. Jean Watson, and shared the idea with her. And then we said we want to connect with HeartMath, and then with Roger Nelson of the Global Coherence. And there literally are centers around the earth that look at these vibration centers, and we know just human consciousness and the focus on nurses right now, that they are able to measure this. So what we did with our core team, and then we brought the Institute of Noetic Sciences in as well, and we have invited people to take a small meditation that we have done focused on peace and healing, moving us through this crisis, and to bring in Nightingale's energy and philosophy in this philosophical foundation of who we are and nurses' work in the world. And so this short meditation is being translated into all of the languages of the UN, and we will have many more languages that will come in. But first of all, we will start with just 6 to 8. We'll see what comes in by May. We will launch it in the US on May the 12th at 12 noon, but we're going to put it on the web 2 weeks ahead of time, because remember, half of the world is a day ahead of us, and their noon is going to be a day and a half ahead of us. Okay. So what I will be sharing with you, and I will get that to you very shortly. I'll have it to you by the 28th, and here's the reason for it. The invitation will go out there. You can put it on your website. We'll be putting on others. But then my colleague Diva Marie Beck and I of the Nightingale Initiative for Global Health realized that we had wonderful opportunities to share Nightingale's vision and connect it with the Sustainable Development Goals. And we had this fantastic PowerPoint that nobody is seeing. So what we're going to do this weekend is we're going to record that video. Okay, and we're going to put it out there free for the world to have, and there will be a link on that invitation. So that's what we need to do, is record that and have that link. And so nurses can use this any way they want. I'll send you several other links too that nurses can use just to be re-energized and feel their own light burning. And you will see, I believe you can see it, a candle that I keep burning in my study. And I turn this on every morning when I come into my study, just to remind me of why I have come to this study, to remind me of all of the brothers and sisters that are out there on the front line that are doing this work, and then how everybody else is weaving with the different kinds of partnerships. We've all been called to do something at this moment in time. So to value that little thread that we are doing, and to the bigger piece of connecting with our 24 million nurses and midwives around the world that are doing this work, and also everybody else on the healthcare team and all the people in the community that are volunteering. And the people this morning, before I came in here, we are blessed to live in a city, and I heard the garbage truck, pick up the trash that we took down. And I just, said a prayer when I, heard that truck. And, the postman that, if I run into him walking today, I will just, these precious people that are helping keep some balance in our life. So thank you for saying that. And again, people can go to Nightingale Initiative for Global Health. Our website is www.nivision.net.
Beautiful. Well, Barbara, I just want to say how much I appreciate the work that you've done. You've authored and co-authored 25 books. You've been coaching. You've made such a contribution to nursing. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time and this organization that you're putting into to create this global initiative where we can all come together in our consciousness. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for the light, the inspiration, and the joy that you bring me. And thank you so much for being part of this telesummit.
And I also want to say, as I finish, my enthusiasm and the accomplishments I've had in nursing is because I love to partner. And my work and the things that I've been able to accomplish, it has to do with partnerships and joining like-minded nurses. And this is what keeps my light going all the time. Thank you, sister.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.